All right, folks, today on the Second Chance podcast, we're joined by Rhonda Parker Taylor, a writer, entrepreneur, and an academic researcher whose journey is nothing short of inspiring. From surviving a cult to navigating dangerous personal loss, including the tragic murder of her adopted son, D'Angelo. Rhonda has transformed her life experiences into a mission to help others find strength in adversity. As a best selling author and consultant, she empowers individuals to embrace change, cultivate resilience, and turn life's challenges into opportunities for growth. I'm excited to learn more. Rhonda, you're not my first cult survivor that's been on my podcast. I've had a
Um,
couple. My friend Manti, and I have an episode coming out at Christmas, and your timing is impeccable because I think it'll really help build off of the conversations that I've had with those folks as well. But thank you so much for being here today.
well, well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I touched on it, and it's always a great place to start. But just your journey from being a cult survivor to becoming a healing expert and a hope dealer is remarkable. What was the pivotal moment that sparked this transformation? Kind of take us back if you want to, but just what set you on the path that you're on to now?
Well, I would like to say that I've discovered myself through um, the freedom to unlock my purpose. So, as I was growing up, first I was raised in a Christian background, okay? And then as I spread my wings, into adulthood, one, I moved away from my family's nest, which put me in a vulnerable situation of being on my own. And so, when I was out in the world, I allowed myself to entertain what other people might consider even evil. Um, I wanted to understand some of the strifes that I'd been through, some of the victimization that I'd been through when I was younger. I had been in a car accident and had hit my head really hard when I had moved. And everybody was like, you know what? You will learn more if you start doing tarot cards. They will help you understand these dreams you have. They will help you understand why you keep on being attacked. Don't worry about that Christian upbringing. Don't think about that. That's not, what they're saying as far as good and evil, that's not the truth. It's just light and dark. And so I allowed myself to be convinced that I could find my purpose in this other direction that I had been taught was not good for me and that would be all a terrible path for me. And in doing that, um I found that I needed to break free from that too, because what I ended up doing was opening myself up exactly like they said I would to the darkness of the world. And I was seeing things, and and what people would say is, that's not real. What you're seeing isn't real. But even in the Bible, it tells you that it's real. So what I had to do, and I had to learn the rules really of engagement with the other world. I had to realize that for me to break free, I not only had to denounce what my mind, my spirituality, my thought believed in now and what I had witnessed, and I had to let it go. And it started with my first college um, roommate. I went to a college that I didn't know anybody, and the roommate was a satanic worshiper.
Mm.
And when I tried to leave that, because of course, being from a small town, from a religious background, I'm like, oh, I can't stay here. And she would almost tease and tantalize me by saying, they sent me here for you. You're weaker during the day than you are at night because your guard is up and you fear the night. And she would come up with these things that would intrigue me, and I also knew they were true. So I left that situation and then moved into another situation that I really, with the cards, that it basically was doing exactly what she wanted me to do. I was trying to learn how to read them. I was trying to be a clairvoyant. I was trying to understand my life. But what I failed to do is realize the power was within me, not within these other scopes of the world. So the losses that I was experiencing, I've experienced loss of both parents. I've experienced the loss of my son through violence. And so breast cancer, lung cancer, death of a loved one, victimization. So I was taking all of these aligned tragedies, dramas, and trying to find something external to heal me. And instead of finding my own spirituality, I picked the world's way of doing it. And what I found that is in every loss that you have, there is a lesson. And it's up to you to find that lesson and heal. Because when you find the lesson and you heal, you turn the pain into purpose and into a new mission rather than staying stuck in what evil, darkness, whatever you might want to call it, that it doesn't have your best intentions. Everybody has their own bridge of loss that they have to heal from. So I had to figure out that there's hope in darkness. There's good in the storm, and there's energy in that storm, and you are part of the storm and how it reshapes the future. And once I could find that within myself, I realized, oh my goodness, I have something that I can help others, because in every loss, in every trauma, within every drama, within everything that we have to heal within ourselves, it starts with one story. And whatever that story is, whether it's a childhood experience, middle, teenage years experience, or adult experience, it could be something like divorce, domestic violence, empty nesting. We all have different levels of trauma. And when we can do that, the comfort and connections with ourself is what starts the healing, and realizing that the journey is shorter with every step you make.
Where where do you think that darkness comes from?
Well, if you go back to my religious beliefs, I
Yeah.
would you could start there, because that's what I've been told, right? That is what I've been taught. That is what is groomed to me. And I would say that you have good and evil, heaven and hell, God and Satan. So you can start there, because that's what religion tells us, right?
Yeah.
And then you can take it a step further, and you can say, what do I believe? And deconstruct those beliefs. And that darkness can come from us fighting our own purpose, fighting our own experiences. When we're young, especially, and our minds and our bodies and everything are developing, they say for everything that you experience that's traumatic, it takes 10 times more of those experiences to overcome them mentally, emotionally. So everything resonates within your body. So they call them ACEs, for instance. We'll start from the child. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And for every one of those, they're saying it takes 10 good experiences to outrule it, and you need some kind of healing to fix it. So it doesn't matter whether we'll take one scenario, parents. Doesn't matter if it was a one-parent house, two-parent house. Doesn't matter if there was divorce or they stayed together, or single parent, non-single parent. It doesn't. There's 100 different ways trauma can happen to a child based on parenting. We'll take that as an example. It could be witnessing violence in the neighborhood. It could be experiencing violence. It could be moves. It could be your peer groups. So all of these traumatic, we can't define what's traumatic for another person. But for every ACE that happens to an individual, the higher the number of ACEs, the more likely your brain is changing shape to accommodate, and this has been proven in scientific methods, to accommodate the realization and the loss of your naiveness and your innocence and the change in what society says life's going to be. So if you've had 6 traumas in your lifetime as a child, you're 30% more likely to have addictions. If you're 50% more likely to have addictions or mental health issues, if you experience more than 6 traumas during a childhood. So then you go to where it might be 80 or 90, or add the biological strand of what we would consider darkness. Then you're getting into somebody that's been traumatized, several times, to dozens of times during a childhood. So darkness comes not only from the religious standpoint of who we are, good and bad, what's the beginning of life to the end of life, right? The cycle of life, which is what religions tell us, but it's also your experiences in life. Your body and your mind memorize every single experience that you have. Your lived experience creates what darkness is. It creates what your decision making may be. It challenges yourself from being resilient and radiant to being resilient and sitting in the bed and refusing to get out, because your experiences creates that darkness sometimes.
When we talked about the cult experience, was that from Christianity, the satanic side, the tarot groups? Where did that come from?
I would say that that's more from the tarot groups and the satanic side. For me, that
Yeah,
is me, but here again, that's challenging my Christian beliefs. It's putting me in a fearful factor. It's putting me in an experience that I'm uncomfortable with. So for me, what does that mean? That means that I have opened myself up to trauma. So it doesn't, for somebody else, it might be the opposite. You might be able to take somebody that's been raised in another belief cycle and bring them into a very strict Christian, and they might think theirs is traumatic and cult oriented, because your upbringing, your beliefs, your solid foundation of what you believe as good, evil, dark, light, is what breaks you free to understanding your own spiritual connection to the world. So however you define it, you are going to be traumatized by the opposite if you're experiencing, most likely, unless you accept it.
yeah. Um, how did you realize then we're gonna wrap up with this question. How did you realize you were in a cult? Like, what was your realization? Was it outside influence? Did you have a light bulb moment? How did you realize you were in a cultish type situation that where you could label yourself as a cult survivor?
When I started doing the cards that I could read, and everybody in the room before they even walked in, And then when we started talking to people about how do you get rid of this situation, and they said you have to take the cards back to where you purchased them, and they gave you a ritual of how you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then shortly afterwards, I moved. And then, believe it or not, um, when someone was moving somebody, and they had boxes in my garage, and they were going through it because they're like, which ones do we pitch? Which do we not pitch? They opened up one of the boxes, and guess what's in the boxes?
Candy
Same car,
bars. Mhm.
the same everything. And it wasn't, it probably wasn't mine, but it was the same brands, same type, same pictures, same everything. And what do you think I'm doing at that point? I might get those things
Yeah.
out before they take over my house again.
Yeah.
And once we had decided that they had to go back, at that point, my significant other left the house and the whole house went up into flames.
Mm.
And I was asleep. So I could have been killed with the cards.
Oh, goodness gracious. Um, you talked about your son, D'Angelo, and your absolute tragic loss of losing him. How does that experience um help you drive your mission, and how your perspective on resilience and how you help others that are navigating um, life's crossroads? How has that helped you along the way, as bad as it is? How are you able to use that as one of your teaching moments now?
For me, it was one of those moments when I had to choose between keeping my sanity or choosing to live.
Mm.
When there's an officer at the door that knocks on the door and says, your son was killed last night at work, you have a choice within seconds of losing your mind or gathering the pieces up and realizing that with every journey, it's shorter with the first step. And I became very childlike in that moment. And I realized that everything that I'd learned when I was small about the fairy tale also teaches you about resilience. And if you go, as you're watching the Peanuts and, Charlie Brown and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer through this season, every one of them has a jingle about how you continue to move forward. And for me, the one that anytime that trauma hits now, I think about put one foot in front of the other. And then that helps me realize the importance of moving through and breaking through and aligning with the purpose that I'm intended to do. And that is to teach people that failure is not the end of any story if you don't want it to be. It begins with the second chance. It doesn't matter what it is. Like I said when we started, I I've had good and I've had bad in my life. I've had death and I've had life. I've had tragedy and I've had peace. But with every second chance, just like your podcast is about, you get a choice on whether you move forward, or is it going to be the loss that kills you? Is it going to be the space for a new opportunity? And every day we have that choice of the space of an opportunity versus a second chance that destroys us. So the second chance can be our gift that turns into triumph. And that's the message I want people to say. You're going to have loss. You're going to have failures. You're going to have successes. You're going to have joys, because that's the cycle of life. And you're going to make good decisions and you're going to make bad decisions. And no matter what those good and bad decisions are, from every loss, you get the second chance. For every failure, you get the second chance. For every fall you have that you've embraced, you get that second chance. And in that, it means that the second chance allows you to rise above, become, strengthen and triumph and find your inner beast to survive.
It's great advice. It's you spoke it really well there. Where sometimes the event, the hardship, the death, the pain, the whatever, it's your second, it's your learning moment, it's your second chance, it's a lot packed into there.
It,
Um,
it could be as simple as rejection.
yeah,
I wrote Crossroads, my first fiction novel. I had a traditional publisher. We made it all the way up to the publication date, and they killed the deal after 2 years of work. I thought that was the end, and it took me a long time to gather myself up. So it doesn't mean it can the same thing. The second chances come even in business and in our careers and in our relationships. It wasn't the last. It was the second chance, and it allowed me to develop as an individual to be strong enough to continue the message and continue writing rather than giving up. I wasn't mature enough. So in my own ways, that bridge hadn't been built for me to be completely successful. And so the rejection even was the second chance.
you've you've successfully moved through multiple careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fashion, merchandising, business management, writing, consulting. Um, what advice do you give to someone facing uncertainty or fear as they're making a big career change?
Find your story of success.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the same field. It doesn't matter if it's staying in academia or staying in manufacturing. We get stuck on titles, especially in the Midwest. I'm from a blue collar family that says, hey, this, your identity is based on your work and what you do. So for me, I had to realize it's not the work, it's the person. You're the one that's doing it. You're the one that's excelling, whether it's widget making or whether it's coffee making or whether it's book making or teaching. You are creating that product or service. So, what is your story of success? I've helped retrain people that have been downsized after working 25 years. Everybody has a story of success. It might be their loyalty. Maybe they need to have to pick up a computer skill that they didn't have before, but it's still the story of success. They worked 25 years for the same company that allowed them to grow to a certain part, and they were able to make it work and provide for their family. There's not anything better than that. But at the same time, there is opportunity in the second chance. You can rise, you can begin anew, you can have a new mission, you can have a new life, you can have a new process, but you have to embrace that second chance change.
It's great advice, man. Um, you don't realize sometimes how hard that is to get out of your way. And through that, you've got a pretty cool self help workbook coming out. Do you have a little sneak peek of a strategy or exercise from the workbook that is impactful for your own life right now that
Mhm.
you'd like to share?
Sure. So, well, let's first show the actual cover. So let's take a look at this. This is our life, and we are constantly changing. And if you look at the two balancers, you see the balances there. And let's talk about what you've put in those scales. When you put in those scales, you have to say, do I have the right things in the scales to make things right for me? So I tell everybody, close your eyes. If you wake up tomorrow and everything is perfect, what does it look like? What does that look like? And then go shopping for it. Now, I originally thought when I did this for the first time that I wanted 18 bedrooms, 10 dining rooms, the pool in the back. And then I realized I don't want to work, I don't want to clean it. I don't like people to come in and clean for me. And there's only two of us. What are we going to do with that, right? So I had to rethink that. And I realized I wanted a park. I like parks. I like going outside. So I found the house that's smaller, but has 3 acres, and I get all the wildlife coming through. So I had to feed my own soul for that healing. So each of us close our eyes, think about it, and then let's talk about what we're really doing. Where are we putting our value in those scales? And you realize that, wait a minute, I like doing puzzles, but I'm spending 20 hours a week watching TV. I don't even like TV. And so you realize then all of a sudden that you can have a fulfilled life and create the life you want just by doing incremental changes and putting the priorities where you want it. It doesn't take big sweeping money or you have to redo your whole life and spend your whole life in the gym because you need physical health. When the doctor tells you that it's time for you to start paying attention to your physical health, get a desk that you have to stand up in, start eating berries and drinking your water, and do that incremental change. And immediately things are going to start changing for you as you do the small stuff. And same thing with your spiritual connection and healing. Are you meditating? Are you breathing deeply? Are you getting the oxygen that you need? Are you getting the water that you need? Are you meditating on healthy things, or are you binge watching like I can do on crime thrillers because you enjoy the crime? Well, guess what I'm doing if I'm doing that? I'm feeding my brain negativity at the same time and taking away the innocence of my life, of my thought patterns. So you have to balance these things to bring in light and reject what we have found to be in darkness. That's here again. We entertain our scars. All the trauma that we've experienced in our life, we don't mind sitting in it because we've now normalized it in our brains and in our body. It's the sciatica that you have. It's the backache that you have. It's the headaches that you get because you aren't continually feeding the positive in your food, in your life, in your discussions. You have to stay in the second chance and opportunity to better yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we overestimate how simple things will move the needle. And one of them in fitness and just being a gym owner. But then when I work with folks, I'm like, if they've never had a routine or whatever, that's one of the things I teach them. Put your shoes on and go walk in your neighborhood. You don't have to get up and down off the floor. Just go for a walk and do that repetitively 5 to 7 days a week and move. You pay attention to your calories. Try to eat cleaner. Stay away from the additives. A lot of the other things that we're positively seems like moving, trying to fix some of the food stuff. But you don't have to go lift a bunch of weights and do burpees. Just move. Just very very incremental steps. Great advice.
And it's very easy to do. I remember someone said, "You are going to turn into a chair one day," because
Mm,
I do. I write. Um, do school work. I'm mentoring all the time. Zoom calls, podcasts. And I was like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Because I get up and I actually walk. Went to the chiropractor because I was having some back. I'm like, "Oh, my sciatica must be acting up." They said, "You're getting piriformis." I'm like, "Piriformis? I've never even heard of that." I go Google it, and it's the technical term is your glutes are wasting away.
Yeah.
And I glutes away. You're telling me my butt's wasting away. I had to really and guess what? I had turned into a chair,
Yeah.
basically. And so I had to, think, okay, what are you going to do? You have to get the ball. You have to stand. You got to get the Veridesk and change just the small things to prevent my body from deteriorating. So it's incremental. Same thing with anything, your integrity. You are going to make bad decisions. What made me pick up the cards? I hadn't deconstructed my own values and integrity. Had I done that and I truly believed in what I believed, I would never have touched them.
Interesting.
So why didn't I? Because I hadn't deconstructed and created my own value statement. Value statements are very easy to do, whether it be about business, whether it be about your physical performance, whether it be about your mental, your emotional, whatever it may be, you have to easily break it down.
Um, as we wrap up here, you make things sound very easy. Um, but adversity can be so overwhelming to a lot of folks. What are three practical steps that we can leave everyone with for someone who's trying to just turn their most difficult moments into personal strength? Like three tips we can walk off with after we're on. I want to make sure we get your contact and how folks can connect with you. But just like I'd really love to leave three tips or actionable items that if you
First, be kind to yourself and others.
that's good.
Leave every day with compassion for yourself and others. So start your day with kindness and end with compassion. Then, for all of those things that are out there, name it, claim it, and realize that once you've named it and claimed it, you can deal with it. Until you name what it is that's bothering you, that keeps you wanting to stay in bed, that keeps you stopped and not stuck in a rut, or keeps you from really fulfilling your own purpose, you realize you're the first enemy. It's so easy to blame everybody else for why we're not doing it. And then when you name it and you claim it and you define it, you create just one step that you're going to do at a time that's actionable, that you can change. If it means getting up out of bed, great. If it means at the end of the day when it's been miserable, you say thank you for a miserable day to the world, to your God, to whatever it is that you believe in, great. But it requires you to name what it is that has you mentally stuck. If it's addiction, name it. If it's a divorce, name it. If it's perversion, name it. Whatever it is, once you've named it and you identify this is what's stopping me from my journey in life. And it could be that you're naming you. Then you can take those actionable steps. But until you take full responsibility and accountability for whatever it is, there's nothing that you're going to stay stuck in a rut.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta own it. You gotta own your part at least, most definitely, and sometimes you gotta own all of it because it's a big deal.
You
Do
can't change,
you?
so you got to do it from your perspective.
Yeah. Tell us how would you like for folks to connect with you to learn more about you, or is there do you a book or whatever you would like to leave everyone with, and so they can learn more about you and your mission.
Sure. First, they can get a hold of me from rhondaparkertaylor.com. That's my website. All my social media handles are rhondaparkertaylor.com. If they want to start with a book to get to know me, they can go to Crossroads. That's my fiction novel. I think that's the easiest way to get to know me. The reason why I say that is because, hey, it doesn't require anything from you. There's no workbook, there's no working, there's no reflecting. It's just good old entertainment, a crime novel that based out of Indianapolis that makes you reflect on life balance and why people make the decisions that they do. It's like Agatha Christie kind of feel where it's clue based, no horror, no guts, no gore. Basically, why is this happening? You can go through that. The workbook, you can pick up the workbook. You can, everything's on Amazon or my website. Just holler out at us and we'll holler back.
Well, I appreciate you being here and letting me and then everyone who's listening, let us all get to know you and learn more about your story and how you have overcome so much and how you use that today and through your writing, your books. And so I just want to tell you thank you for spending time with me today to get to know you better.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And hello, Virginia.
Thank you. There we go.